100 Proofs the Israelites Were White by PROOFS. Number 1. The Saxons, aka the sons of Sac. Have you ever known any people being called after Isaac? When God made a covenant with Abraham, he also made a prophecy that the future Israelites would be called by his son Isaac's name. This is repeated twice again in the New Testament by Paul. Paul was very aware of the reality of where the lost tribes of Israel were. So which race today is named after Isaac? Who was Paul referring to? In the name Saxon, which is modernized from Sac and son, the I has simply been dropped so we can read sons of Isaac. To understand this, when the Assyrians deported the Israelites around 700 BC, the Israelites, who some called Scythians, began calling themselves the Sake Sune. The Sake, or Israelites, eventually travelled up through the Caucasus Mountains into Europe, and this is where the name gradually got modernized to Saxons. The white race today, the Caucasians, or Anglo-Saxons, Celtic, Germanic peoples, are the real children of Isaac and inherited all the promises. God's prophecies never fail and still hold true after 4,000 years. Ever since the 10 Commandments were given to Moses on Mount Sinai, only one race has consistently followed them all the way up to this day. You find law and order in every white society. The common law we have today was built upon these very 10 Commandments. You find it in every white society, but completely absent in any other races, countries, and laws. Whites are the true and only descendants of the Israelites. Number 3. America's flag, the 13 stripes, is the 13 tribes of Israel. Although Jacob, Israel, originally only had 12 sons, which later became the 12 tribes of Israel, we must remember that Joseph, the 11th son, passed his inheritance onto his own 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Jacob made these his own sons and blessed them, thus making it a total of 13 tribes. America was founded by these very 13 tribes, and it was founded by white Europeans. The American flag has 13 stripes for this reason, each stripe representing a different tribe. America was the inheritance of Israel. Some race in history has truly accomplished settling the entire world, populating every continent to every corner, every campus, covering the whole earth completely. Prophecies such as those in Isaiah are full of Israelites blossoming and spreading everywhere. Looking at maps only a century ago onto all other nations, whenever the Europeans have traveled to, wherever they settled, society has blossomed. Every country has benefited from having them there, be it agriculture, farms, housing, courts, schools, hospitals, and an endless list. Wherever whites have been forced out of nations, those nations quickly crumbled. Has any other people blessed the nations wherever they went? 59. Paul's letters show the Europeans are the Israelites. In Romans, Paul describes them as a wild olive tree. This is a reference to when God called the children of Israel an olive tree in Jeremiah. The Israelites who went with Moses were given the law, and they became a cultivated olive tree, whilst the Roman ancestors who left the main body of Israel, they were not given the law, and therefore grew up to be a wild olive tree. In Corinthians, Paul explains that their fathers were with Moses in the desert, that they were under the cloud with their Israelite brethren. Again, this is only possible if their ancestors were Israelites. The Corinthians were Dorian Greeks. Like the Spartans, they came from Dor, and they left after the Exodus. In Galatians, Paul explains that the law had been our tutor for Christ. The Galatians were Israelites who descended from those of the Assyrian deportations. The law had certainly been their tutor, since its precepts would have been handed down through history in their tribal practices.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rucha HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and the bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to the other elders and brethren. Shalom to you fellow believers, you supporters of the faith, whoever you may be, and shalom to the elect. So I saw this video with this man trying to keep the Israelites white. Now, the question I have for the black pastors and preachers that say we're a hate racist group. What do you have to say about this guy? Right? We want to know. But anyway, you gotta, doing these type of videos, you gotta have some patience and poise and temperament, dealing with seeing this, man. It's outrageous, but we just save it for the video. So anyway, this man is saying all the Israelites are white. He can prove it. Now we do understand in Deuteronomy 28:64 that the Israelites were scattered from one end of the earth even to the other, so they will look like different nations as well. But going back into the time then, he's saying Moses was white, Aaron was white, Eleazar was white, Phinehas was white. This is what he's saying, but we're going to prove in this lesson it's an absolute lie. Also, he says that everywhere they went, they conquered and made places great. So we understand that he said the 13 stripes on the flag represent the 13 tribes of Israel. So these culture vultures who steal everybody's identity, right? And we're going to get into that too. But those 13 stripes represented the 13 colonies. So I don't know where that come from. But first, we're going to read Job 9:24. It says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. These never get old, right? These scriptures never get old. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, if not where and who is he? So we see that during the time of the 1400s, in 1456, they put up Iesus, Caesar Borgias, and they put him up to be the new Christ. So we have to understand, if somebody does a thing called iconoclasm, take down the Russian icons and images, and then of Europe images, of black images, and then they make them white, then that tells you right there that something's wrong. Why would they have the need to repaint the images to a new color if they was already that color? But you know what these critics and these racist Christians say? They say this happened because the pictures was left in caves and tunnels, and it made the people turn black. But somehow their hair turned woolly all of a sudden from sitting in the cave, right? The clothes still stayed the same color and complexion, but whatever reason, the faces just turned black. So racism just can't stop, man, right? It's always going to be racism. That is never going to go anywhere. In the kingdom of heaven, there's a thing called racism. The children of Israel will be ruling over the other nations, racist, right? So, where do we go next? So all this false, we're going to prove it in this lesson that they can't be the people of the Bible. So we're going to go to the book of, I thought I had one up, but I don't have it up. But we will prove without a shadow of a doubt that the Israelites were so-called black. Let's go to the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. And he said he made everyone great. You mean to tell me America wasn't great before they founded it? You know why they say it's great, right? They hail Alexander the Great, the Greek, the Great, which he allowed us to practice our stuff. But they hailed him great because they were the conquerors. These same people went into was from the mountains of Petra, Edom, and then they went into the Caucasus Mountains in Europe. Do you know why they was in Petra, Edom? To get in those mountains, to get away from the lower altitudes. They didn't do well with the mosquitoes, right? Found that out from one of them saying that, right? Because the blood shows through the skin, but somehow they were God's people under melanated. Even the tree branches and trees got melanization. And then he brought up the olive tree, likened unto the olive tree. The olive tree is not with branches that discolored, right? That doesn't have protection. The olive tree has protection too. It has chlorophyll in the bark as well. But anyway, Habakkuk 2 and 5. 4. His soul, but behold, right? This is talking about, who is this speaking of? Let's see when we read, does it all come together? Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. Ye also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, right? Neither keepeth at home who enlargeth his desire is hell, and as is death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth up to him all nations, and heapeth to him all people. So this man just admittedly said, right here, according to Habakkuk, through process of elimination, whatever race or species went around the world and stole everything from everybody and declaimed it godly, right? Declaimed it rich. There's God's people did the stuff like Columbus. Columbus went to the Taino Indians, and when they went there and he left, supposedly his men raped the women, and then they retaliated. Then when he comes back, he sees his men killed, and he goes back and get a fleet and wipe damn near all of them out. And this is exactly what happened in the West African slave trade, the Barbary slave trade, when the other Arabs had their hand in the slave trade of the sub-Saharan slave trade and traded us in the transatlantic slave trade, right? The difference is through the Barbary slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade is these were Israelites board here, right? And then they even gave some of the so-called Italians hell because they knew they was of their so-called black blood. But this guy, I don't know if he understands that the people in the other land doesn't even identify with him. I don't know. But it is what it is. So let's go on. When it says, woe to the Chaldeans, which represents them, Ecclesiastes 1:9, because thou hast spoiled many nations. Now, we see, and I got to be careful with saying things. I put up the video on the Elaine massacre in Arkansas, right, where they were slaughtering us, and we went through several massacres by the hands of his people that claim to be Israelites, right? Not the Bear River massacre, as the younger brother brought out, and various other massacres where they chained children up in schools and set it on fire and let them die in the schools. Yeah, even in the 1900s. These are God's chosen people, right? Yeah, we can see that ain't the case. But anyway, the Tube took the video down because they said it was too graphic. You know why they did that? Because it said this is proof that we are the Israelites. And according to the curses, right? Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 48. And then we're going to get to the nitty gritty of the proof, right? It says, therefore thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and thirst and nakedness and want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. So now, according to this doctrine, if he's the Israelites, now everything we see that happened to us now in 70 AD in Babylon, these same culture vultures, these same wicked people, right, will lie and covet and say it's them. But through all the stuff that happened to us, they will now try to steal the identity of the things they done to us and claim it was them. This is a sick man, right? This is a sick man. We'll get to that in a second. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. So we know the Egyptians were so-called black. Now Ptolemy went down in there too, another white man, right, of one of Alexander's generals. He had quite a few of them. You know, we know the four, but you had Antiguus and you had other generals, but the main four, right? And so he went down into Egypt, conquered Egypt, and declared himself Egyptian. Right, that's an Israelite too, right? But then the same white Israelite men, as they claim to be, came to America, killed and destroyed damn near all the Native American Indians, brought other people into slavery into America, and there should be some record if this is the children of Israel doing this and saying that they're the people, right? But here it says they came into Egypt again with ships, by the way of there I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there thou shalt be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall redeem you. It says buy you, but it's redeem you. So again, we seeing these covetous culture vultures who steal our identity, say it's them, but then when the curses come around, they flip it around and say, oh, it's General Vespasian and Titus. This is what they do. Although the hell that we caught on those slave ships and before, and on those ships, and in America through these massacres, and you see the state of the people today, right? Then they give you all this poison. Then you hit up to the clinic. Then they give you some more, right? And then they keep you in the loop and then say, we healed you. When all along, we see that F and then that D and then that A. What the heck does the food have to do with everything else? The drugs. Yeah. Space trash, just floating out of space, right? But this is the white hope Israelites. Anyway, the great white Israelites. Okay? So anyway, enough of the ramble. Let's go to the nitty gritty. 2 Thessalonians 2, and let's get to the point. Is it 2? Let me see. Let's get to the point. It says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall come except there is a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, destruction, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God. Yeah, so this is what we see. According to what this man is saying, he's fitting all of this, right? Conquering, went around the world, claimed they made nations great. So if that's the case, we'd be in the kingdom of heaven, wouldn't we? But it doesn't seem that way. According to the prophecy, they will take the Israelites will be taken into other nations, scattered, beat, whipped, put in hardcore bondage, not your normal slavery like they talk about the Barbary slave trade and various other trades. But this is talking about the children of Israel. Them other slave so-called trades with small amounts of a handful of different people. And by the way, blacks, so-called blacks, was in Europe too. So anyway, that he is called God, or that is worship, so that he is God that sitteth in the temple, right? As of God, shewing himself that he is God, right? Now, this is how we're going to prove this, right? I didn't even pull up a lot of scriptures. Leviticus 19:11, ye shall not steal, neither deal falsely, right? Ye should not steal. If a thief is found, they must pay double for stolen goods. This is why Revelation 18:6 says, double unto her according to her works. This is really talking about the Israelites. But you've done nothing but been a thief and a murderer on the planet. And the main thing you did is deception of stealing our identity, right? Let's read this real quick. Acts 13:1. It says, there were in the church that was in Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, Lucius and Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, right? Tetrarch, and Saul. So we see this word, right? Simeon, that was called Niger. Now, why is this important? Because when you see the one you call Jesus, Yahushua, when it talks about Revelation 1, his hair and his hairs were white, likened unto wool, as his eyes was as a flame of fire, wasn't fire, but his feet like unto fine brass, as they burnt in the furnace. Fine brass is dark, right? Because it's refined. When you go into the older Bible, the 1300s, it said his feet was like unto lantern in a burnt chimney. So the reason why it says black, because all the Israelites were so-called different shades of so-called black, but you had certain ones that was actually darker. When I was in the streets many years back, we always knew somebody that was named Black. I had a good friend, his name was Black. Although I'm so-called black, but he was a unique black. He was a dark, glowing type black. And this is what we see with Yahushua. This is what you see here with Niger. You can get a book called the Black Kings of Europe, and some of them was called themselves Niger. And so this man, when he came and took us, and that Niger turned to what? Let's listen closely. Listen closely what Niger turned into. G3526. I'm going to turn my volume up so you can hear this clearly. Let's see what it says.
Strong's G 3526. Niger. Niger. Strong's G 3526. Niger. Niger.
Let's get some more proof. All right, let's get some more proof. Let's go to the book of Exodus. Let's go to the book of Exodus when it talks about Phinehas, right? Phinehas, when it says, I gotta find it real quick. First Chronicles, let me see, 6 and 4. Eleazar begot Phinehas. Phinehas begot Abishua. So we go on down here to Phinehas. I think I got it up already. Phinehas, let's see what it says. Phinehas.
Strong's H 6372. Pinchas. Pinchas.
Pinchas. So we see here it says, son of Eleazar, grandson of Aaron. His zealousness for the Lord averted a plague of Israel, putting the javelin through the Jake and the heathen, because the practice and the worship of the heathen, not because it was a heathen woman. You know, it's a difference to having a heathen woman, like Solomon had concubines and, you know, men had heathen women, but you, when you bow down to the other gods, remember he said you shall not have other gods and bow down to them. It's another video. But put the plague away from Israel, right? The priest of the son of the priest of Eli, right? That was I believe that's the other one, where Eli was the big Jake that died, and he was the priest and he had those 5 sons. But this is what it says. This is also in your Oxford Dictionary, all right? It says mouth of brass. That's what Phinehas or Pinehas means. Look down here, the Negro. Now in the Oxford Dictionary, oh, it does say here the Egyptian. It says the Egyptian, the Negro, and they also called him, let me see, the Black Nubian. Again, this is important because we were also called black, but he had a darker complexion, well melanated. Those men back then was well melanated, you know. So that's where you get that from. Also, I went to look up Boaz, right? I'm not going to go into Boaz and Ruth, but Boaz, the definition of him is brazen pillars. Brazen pillars, right? 18 cubits high, erected on the porch of Solomon's temple. So we're going to go into online etymology and we're going to look up brazen, right? So a lot of these men was named after in richness, you know what I mean? So we would have not had named our people after Esau, right? As far as in righteousness, of red, you know what I'm saying? No complexion. Brass, the word brazen goes to brass. We just saw Phinehas, mouth of brass. We understand that brass, if you don't, is not the color of brass that you see today. So many years have they translated and watered down what brass actually looks like. It can go from a light brown, and that's all they tend to show, to a very dark complexion, right? Let's check this out. I took the time out to look up refined brass, right? And of course they have some light, but look at this. This is what you see as refined brass. That's refined brass, right? That would be the original. I don't know where the picture is, but that's what it is. Okay. So when it says his feet like unto fine brass as it burned in the furnace, fine brass, look at the colors. We know they're going to throw some light in there because it can be a little lighter, but most of your fine brass, this doesn't look like a white person. Only we can match that. Refined brass. Look at that. Refined brass. These are more images. Oh, somebody got the picture of Yahushua in there. At least what he would have looked like. See more anyway. Look at that. Brass, dark, dark, dark. You get the point. There's no way, according to doctrine, that the Israelites were Edomites. There's no way. You know what I'm saying? There's no way. And the Israelites were not cave dwellers. Okay? Remember the scripture says Esau is Edom. Did we not read the book of Obadiah? Though he set his nest amongst the stars, as swift as the eagle flieth, although he did, again, steal it from the Babylonians, the eagle, but it's the same thing, just from judging and prophecy and everything that's happening now. Who's the white man going to fight against? He's the one in power. If the world is about to end, right, this world as we know it is about to end and Babylon is going to be destroyed. Well, who's the man in power that's going to destroy it if they're already in power? We like to know that too. That's all I have on that show.